And we thank you for being here for the February edition of Conversations with Archbishop Joseph Kurtz. And Archbishop, February, we can't not mention the Feast of St. Valentine.
Oh, absolutely. And the great gift of love.
A month where we celebrate love. Now, I know you were, of course, a parish pastor for a number of years. And I'm just curious, as we have a lot of couples preparing, especially for June weddings, what did you share with couples as they were preparing for their marriage?
Yeah, well, Reed, thanks for asking me about it, because first of all, that was one of the joys I had. I wasn't crazy about rehearsals. I will admit that. However, I loved, in a sense, being allowed to enter into the life of a couple preparing for marriage, helping them look not just at their wedding, but also at their marriage. And the Bishops' Conference, as you know, our bishops issued a wonderful pastoral letter in 2009, and its title is instructive. It's Marriage, Love and Life in the Divine Plan. Love and life in the divine plan. And so the first word I would say that the Church has, and certainly that I have, would be the words of Christ to talk about the joy and exaltation that the Church has in this love that has brought together a man and a woman who desire to commit themselves for the rest of their life to each other. So our first word is a word of joy.
I think this is very important for young people who sometimes don't really feel too welcomed by the church.
Well, it is, and sometimes see the obligation. Now, I will say this, the second word is probably a word of caution, because we're in a culture, people are often delaying marriage, sadly, or not marrying within the church. And so this segment, I hope, will be a chance to get the word out again to couples who are being drawn toward marriage, that they do make contact with their local pastor and begin the process of preparation for marriage within the church. The caution is this, that we're living in an age where people almost get the impression that their marriage is private. It's just between this man and this woman. In fact, that can be a recipe for disaster. Marriage is very personal. The love is truly personal, but it's also very public. And in fact, I know I was just listening to Father Bob Barron in some of the good work that he does. He actually quoted Aristotle, who lived 400 years before Christ, who said that in any friendship, there's always needs for the friendship to last. There always needs to be three parts. There's, of course, the two people who are friends, and then he says something that lifts them above themselves. I would say it's the presence of God, and for a Christian marriage, the presence of Christ. If a couple says that all they need is each other, very quickly they begin either to smother each other or to tire of each other. But when the horizon allows that couple to open their eyes beyond themselves, so that when love moves towards marriage, new horizons occur. And that's when that love becomes nurtured and deepened. And that's what the Church is very interested in.
Friendship is certainly a vital component.
Yeah, it is. There's no question.
No doubt about it. But what are the other messages that you feel that
well,
you
one
would
was
share with couples?
One was our first segment where we talked about sacrifice. You know, if you ask somebody who's their closest friends, especially as we get older, 9 out of 10 times, maybe even more often, you're going to think of someone who sacrificed for you, who didn't have to do something for you, but they did. And so that notion of sacrifice for another person being the greatest form of love is crucial in our own age. At the bishops' meeting in November, we listened, saw actually the unfinished clips from what's going to be a Spanish telenovela. Do you know what a telenovela is? I didn't know. It's basically a soap opera.
Okay.
And this soap opera in Spanish will be about 25 minutes, and it will be on marriage. And even those who didn't, and I know a little bit of Spanish, but I was able to follow it. It's going to be really great. It's about a young couple, just begin to live together. They don't get married, which unfortunately is symptomatic of our culture. Well, the man's grandfather and grandmother are celebrating their 50th anniversary with a big celebration. So this couple goes to it. And it's very interesting because the grandfather's so proud of his wife and of his family. He takes the couple aside and he shows them his wedding ring. And even though I could only follow a little bit of the Spanish, I think there are going to be subtitles, I didn't have to follow. I got the message. The message was that that ring, which was that man's public commitment to his wife, and if God blessed them with children, to his children, that public commitment of fidelity, which was his wedding band, was so deeply cherished in his life that the 50th wedding anniversary meant a great deal. And you could see the expression change on that young couple who themselves were living together as if they were husband and wife, but never got married, never prepared for their marriage ceremony. That's really the greatness. The sacrifice of love allows a couple, in a sense, through God's grace, to turn what begins as love into the gift of marriage, and for a Catholic, the sacrament of marriage.
You know, when we talk about sacrifice, it's certainly vital for young couples as they become parents.
Oh, it is. It is. Actually, when we did the pastoral study for the pastoral letter, so often when people were asked what was the greatest joy in their wedding, or in their marriage, I should say, the most common response, you won't be surprised to hear this, was the joy of watching our children grow. The joy of watching our children grow. And that gift, in fact, we know that the divine plan for marriage is both the deep and faithful love, sacrificial love of the husband and wife for each other, and then, if God blesses them, that openness to new life to children. And that gift of the joy of children, it's a responsibility, and one in which the church and society needs to support a family, make no mistake about it. But we also we don't hear enough about the great joy of that gift of the love of a husband and wife for one another, and if God has blessed them with children and grandchildren, that great gift of love.
These are wonderful insights, and certainly a very powerful calling to young people, young couples in particular. But I know there are many counter-prevailing trends in society today pulling them the other way.
There really is. There really are, I should say, these trends. And I think it's why it's so important for us publicly to speak about it. If you look at television programs, unfortunately, so often the vibrant example of happily married couples and the gift that marriage has for them and for their families isn't highlighted. That's why our talking about it today in this month of February, as people are thinking about anniversaries, or maybe, as you well said, preparing for their own marriage, it's so important to get this word out.
Archbishop, a good conversation here. It goes by rapidly. Good guest today, good conversation as always, and I thank you for taking the time to be here.
Thank you, and Reed, to you and also to our viewing audience, a blessed season of Lent.
Indeed. We're into the Lenten season, and we have begun our journey to Easter.
Excellent.
We will see you next month right here for the March edition of Conversations with Archbishop Joseph Kurtz. Thank you for joining us.